Hello and welcome to this walkthrough video for Lords of Baseball. I'd like to put this together to show some people who may be interested in coming to see the Lords of Baseball demo at WBC a little bit of what they're going to get a chance to look at. My name is Max Gemelli. I'm one of the graphical designers, and I helped put some of this game together with my father Bob. A lot of what you see here on the table is the result of many years of work between my father and I. And some of the pieces are new. The boards look a little bit different from the first video that I posted online. So I thought I would take some time to walk you through maybe some gameplay and some setup at least, so you get a better understanding of what Lords of Baseball is all about. I have a two-player game here set up, and the rules really don't change between 2, 3, or 4 players, but since there are a lot of little chits and cubes and things like that, I thought it would be easier to just set up a two-player game to walk you through. Okay, so let's start out with what we do at the beginning of the game. Once you get all your little chits squared away on the main board, what I've done is put together a checklist of things that all the players are going to do. To get you started, you're going to start with $42,000. And you may take loans right away if you have to. There are 2 loans available, $10,000 and $5,000. So you have some money to build your team initially. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is select a front office level and a team for our major leagues. Now, I've gone ahead and I've done that for both New York and Philadelphia. All right, what I'll do, I'll zoom in here on the rating section. You can see the top line, front office. See, Philadelphia has a 4-star front office. I'll go over here, I'll check out New York. New York has a 2-star front office. That is completely up to the player. You can choose 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. When you do that, you'll check out a small spreadsheet that we've put together, and this has some pre-made teams on it already. So I'm going to zoom right in here on 4-star team number 4. All right, you can see I have 4 different types of players available for my major league team, and they each have a salary associated with them. All right, this is the team that I started Philadelphia out with. On their 25-man major league roster, they have 1 all-star, 13 regular players, and 11 journeyman players. All right, their salaries plus the cost of the front office equal $44,000. So as you can see, their cash left over is $2,000 in the hole. They're going to have to take a loan right away. That's okay. So what Philadelphia did was they marked their board. Major league team is on top. They have 1 all-star. Slide over, they have 11 journeyman players, and they have 13 regular players. Then what they'll do is they'll take the starting journeyman token between 10 and 12, and we'll talk about why they do that here in a second. Okay. New York has selected a 2-star team, and they have 17 journeymen. As you can see, the journeyman plus 10 chit underneath the 7 tells us they have 17, and they have 8 regular players. So after choosing their front office and their team, Philadelphia is $2,000 in the hole, and the New York team has $7,000 left over. And all of that is calculated for you in that spreadsheet. There's no math you have to do for the most part at the beginning of the game. The next thing we're going to do is choose and pay for a farm system. You always have to have 15 people in your farm system. We'll go back down to the ratings, and you can see New York's farm system chit is under 5. They have a 5-star farm system, and if you look at the little chart that's going to accompany the game, you're going to be told the cost and the types of players. There are no choices here. You only get one choice. If you have a 5-star farm system, you'll start the game with 4 phenoms, 5 prospects, and 6 utility players. And we're going to show you right here the second row, farm system, that's listed right here with these chits, phenom, prospect, utility, we have 4, 5, and 6. Okay, for the Philadelphia farm system, we gave them a 3-star farm system because that costs $5,000. They took a $10,000 loan. So we put a little cube there denoting that. So they were able to secure 2 phenoms, 3 prospects, and they have 10 utility players. Because the 5-star farm system is so expensive, it's $9,500, New York also had to take a $10,000 loan. So what they'll do is they'll take one of their cubes and they'll put it on the $10,000 loan as well, just to let them know, to remind them that we have a loan that's outstanding. So at the end of the farm system phase, the New York team has $7,500 plus a loan. The Philadelphia team has $3,000 plus a loan. The last thing that owners need to buy before we can get into card play, they have to buy a manager, pay for a manager. The 5-star manager is obviously better than the 1-star manager. And you can see there are some little ratings that are built into the chart. All of this information will make sense as the game goes on. But for managers, you're basically paying $1,000 per star. So since New York had $7,500, they were able to buy a 5-star manager at a cost of $5,000. And then what the bank will do is they'll give the New York player $2,500 worth of chips to start the round. The Philadelphia team was able to secure a 2-star manager, and they're going to get $1,000 to start the first round. Once this is done, setup is essentially over. So you can see setup can take maybe about 5-10 minutes, depending on how long it takes for each owner to go through and decide, do I want a 2-star front office or I want a 5-star front office? Let me talk a little bit about what some of the differences are. On the rating list, you can see you do get some bonuses with the better front office. For example, with a 5-star front office, you'll start the phase with 2 free media cubes. We'll talk about media here in a little bit. With a 1 or a 2-star front office, you're limited a little bit. So, for example, since New York has a 2-star front office, at any point during this year or until this changes, New York is only ever allowed to have 2 media cubes. And their front office die roll modifier, as you can see, is a 0. If it was a 1, they'd actually have a -1 DRM. Those are some of the penalties that you pay for not having highly rated front offices. The farm system, the limitations you have here are basically how many phenoms you can have in your farm system. So as you can see, with a 3-star farm system, for example, you can only ever have 2 phenoms. Since New York has a 5-star, we can have a maximum of 4 phenoms. That can change throughout the year. It's not a game killer if you go over. It's just something you have to take care of before the season is over. Once you have your team set up, you're going to get 10 cards dealt to you. Now the cards will look like this. These are just some random examples of cards as I just destroy my board. Let me just get this squared away. You'll notice the card has a couple things going on it. There's an off-season event, an in-season event, and there's a number right here. We call that the op number, the operation number. They range from 2 to 4. There are more 4s than 3s. There are more 3s than 2s. There are a number of different ways you can play these cards. And we're going to talk about the ops first. So the numbers, you can play the ops in a number of different ways. You can play ops for wins, comboing them with your superstars, all-stars, or your manager. Right? On the New York team, I do not have any all-stars or superstars. However, on the Philly team, I do have an all-star. So if I wanted to, I could combo any op, so number 3, for example, with my all-star for wins. And the formula for that, for all-stars, is you take the number of ops and you multiply it by 1. So 3 ops times 1 would give the Philly team 3 wins. And we would mark that on our board such as that. All right. We've broken down this the entire year into early season, mid-season, and late season. And you can see these are the number of games we're going to play. If somehow we are able to hit those numbers on the dot, 23, 24, and 25, you'll get a bonus. You get $1,000 just for hitting that number. If not, it's ideal to stay under the number of games. I'll show you an example. If the New York team had 10 early season losses and 10 early season wins, we'll say we're 10-10, and we passed. No one can directly affect us if we pass. Okay, so our record right now is 20-20. I'm sorry, 10-10, which is 20 games. We need to play 3 more games. What we'll do is we play 500 baseball, starting with losses. So we lose 1, we win 1, we lose 1. So our 23-game record would be 11-12. If I have 10 wins and 0 losses, and I pass, we have 13 games to play. We split the 13 in half. I would win 6, and I would lose 7. So our final early season would look like this. We'd be 16-7. And what we do, I'm going to take you back up here to the main board. What we'll do is we'll keep track of our team's wins and losses along the scoreboard. So we might have a first-year phase that looks like this. Philadelphia might have 20 wins. New York might have 16. And that's just a way for the players to keep track visually of who's doing better than others. The pawns that you see, the pawns are going to be calculators of victory points. It's really a victory point game. I've seen people who have never won the World Series or the championship end up with the most victory points. I've seen people who've made the championship far ahead in victory points. It's really how you play through your cards and how you do some of the mini games that are available. Sometimes you have little options in the cards that say if you do certain things, you can score victory points along the way. So I think now is a good time to actually go through the victory point chart so you can kind of see what victory points are all about in this game. At the end of the season, so we'll play through 162 games. We'll do a victory point check. Each of these sections has something to do with victory points. Okay, so the first part, team ratings. Each star in the ratings section of the team mat is worth 1 victory point. So our front office, farm system, and manager. So just checking on New York right now, we'd have 12 victory points. 2 + 5 + 5. Now we go to see if we have a winning season. If you have a winning season, that means you've won more games than you lost. It doesn't matter if you've made the playoffs or not. If you started the year with a 5-star front office, you're going to get 1 point. Because having a winning season with a 5-star front office is pretty easy. If you've done it with a 2-star front office, for example, like New York, it would be worth 7 victory points. Because it's a little tougher to do. So every player checks that. If you win the pennant, you're going to get 5 points. Second, third, and fourth place gets points accordingly. The championship winner is determined by a die roll, which we can show you here in a little bit. Each player on your roster has a victory point associated with it. Superstars are worth 3 points apiece. All-stars are worth 2 points apiece. If you have any phenoms in your farm system, each of them are worth 1 point apiece. And cash on hand is worth 1 point per each $10,000, as long as you don't have a loan. If you have a loan, you don't get points for cash on hand. If you have any media influence left over, which you will, you're going to get 1 point per cube. And then finally, in-season depth rating. The JM stands for journeyman. How many journeymen do you have on your team? Okay, so right now New York has 17 journeymen. They would lose a victory point for that. Philadelphia has 11 journeymen. They would gain a victory point. The reason we have the in-season depth rating, it's kind of a play off of, each player is worth a certain number of victory points. That is the victory point check. Okay, so you would play through the early season, the mid-season, and the late season, playing cards on yourself, playing cards on your opponents, and you would generate wins and losses, and you get money. So let me show you, some of the other ways you can get wins. I showed you how to combo ops on your superstar, your all-star. To combo them with your manager, you're going to take the op number, so 4, and we're going to add that, excuse me, we're going to add that to our manager rating. So New York's manager card rating, because we're playing a card, is 3. I would take this 3 and add it to the 4, and I'd get 7 wins. So I can move my win marker up 7. I can also take these cards and play them negatively against my opponent. And this is the cutthroat part of the game. This is the part of the game that almost makes it feel like you're playing a war game. And so, for example, this card, the event on the bottom says, play against any player who loses 5 games in the current phase. So you get to choose which player you want to play this on. So say, for example, I play it on Philadelphia because they're the only one here. I move their loss token under 5. Now, we didn't want people to be able to gang up on one particular player. So in any phase, you can only ever be hit with one event. And we mark the EVT section of our player board, and that shows, hey, I've been hit by an event. You can't hit me anymore, at least not in this phase. Okay? So how else can I get to him? Well, I can also use ops on other players. I can take that 4 and I can just give out 4 losses. So I can move this up to 9. But then what he's going to get to do is cover up the op square on his player mark. So you can only get hit with 2 ops and 2 events. Okay? It's pretty cutthroat getting hit 3 times, but it doesn't cripple you as a player. And what happens a lot of times, what we found is people, if they see a leader up on the board, obviously they want to go take care of him. They gang up on the leader syndrome. However, the more they gang up on him, the less they're doing to help themselves. So there is that balance aspect of it as well. Some of the other things you can do with cards, obviously, are the events. And the choice on the events really breaks down to, what kind of player do you think you need to be? The events are color-coded. Green is good. You want to play a green event on yourself. Red is bad. You want to play that on somebody else. So I can see this card has a good off-season event and a nasty in-season event. So during the off-season, I have to decide, well, do I want to play the nice event for myself, or do I want to save this to attack someone else with as the game goes on? In the advanced game of Lords of Baseball, we'll play through as many off-season cards as we want to. There is a basic version that we put together that we do for demos especially, where you only play one off-season card. But if you have a whole deck of, you start the game with 9 cards, and you see there's a lot of choices to be made, as there are in any card-driven game. In the longer version of the game, sometimes people run out of cards. And the tough part about this game is you only get a deck of 9 cards to get through the early season, the mid-season, and the late season. The postseason we may or may not get to. I'll tell you why here in a second. As you go through, if you need to get more cards, you can buy cards. We call it the cycle. Each card costs $1,000, and you can do this once per phase. We have it on our player mat, so if New York wants to do the cycle, we just cover cycle up so we know. And you buy cards. If you want to buy one card, it costs $1,000. So I'd spend $1,000 and I draw the top card. If I like it, I can play it. If I don't like it, I just discard it and I'm just at $1,000. A double costs $2,000. I draw 2 cards. I have to play one and I have to throw one away. If I buy a triple, I have to use one, so I use this one. I have to ditch one, so I'll ditch that one, but I get to keep a card. I'll keep that one. The home run, you probably guessed it, you buy 4 cards, play one, throw one away, and you get to keep 2. And that costs $4,000. Okay. So that's a way that you can build up your hand of cards. You don't want to do that too many times during the year, though, because at the end of the late season, so when we are here and it's the end of the late season, anyone with cards in their hand has to discard them, and it's $1,000 per card to discard. That's the penalty. There are a couple cards that have events on them that say, hey, you can hold on to cards if you want, but those cards need to be played to be used. The other aspects of the game that are somewhat new from the last video, we also have an off-season deck. It's something that happens at the beginning of each season, and this is just an event that happens to everybody. So this, for example, is the international free agent card. Everyone secretly will pocket the number they'd be willing to spend to negotiate with this player, and then whoever negotiates the most money gets to roll the dice. If they roll a 9 or a 10, they just bought themselves a superstar. You just can't buy die roll modifiers. Some of the other off-season events, you can earn money for people on your farm system. You can, have everybody roll the dice. Whoever rolls the highest gets an all-star. So there's some good things in there. There are also some not so good things that you have to watch out for. The other thing that is somewhat new compared to the last video is the concept of the trade chart. What we liked the most about trading in this game is something that we used media for. Media influence is something that helps you mitigate die rolls. The only way you really roll the dice a lot in this game is when you try to bring phenoms up to the majors, which I talked about a little bit in the other video. That concept hasn't changed. However, you can still buy die roll modifiers before you roll the dice. Media allow you to mitigate the die rolls after you've rolled the die. And media can be purchased during the payout phases. The payout phases are still pretty much the same from the other video. The only difference really is we're really working on one chart, so it's gone pretty quickly. So for example, if I were trying to bring someone up to the majors and I rolled a 7 with no die roll modifiers, as you can see on the Phenom to Major chart of 7, he's a regular. However, if I burn this media cube, I can make that 7 into an 8, which means he's made it as an all-star. If I rolled a 7 and I didn't have any media, but our friends over in Philadelphia had media, what the guy in Philadelphia might say is, I will influence the media on your behalf. I'll bump that 7 up to an 8 for you if you give me 3 regular players. If I give him 3 regular players, he's able to cut journeyman. That's one way you knock your journeyman ratings down. Okay. The other way that you can do that is through the trade chart, and this is something that again is on your event or action sheet on your player mat, and it's something that you can do once per phase, and you can make these trades. On the black side, you can trade either or, so you can trade $1,000 in one prospect and get a regular, or you can trade a regular and get $1,000 in a prospect. And by trading the regular, that will adjust your journeyman up or down. On the red side, you can only trade what's on the left, and you can only get what's on the right. It's red because it's kind of like the fire sale. You can trade superstars and all-stars, and you can get some stuff in return for that. And when we play through a number of years, as players retire, we also have something called a draft, and it's basically a die roll where it's just a way for players to replenish their farm system. So if I rolled a 10, I would get to add 2 phenoms, but I'd have to pay $1,000 for it. And there's also a little mini event that's on these. These are obviously still in the works. Some of the game is still in prototype form, as most of the game's in prototype form. I like to think that the cards are really professional quality, and the board for his it's on cardstock, but I like to think everything looks pretty good for a prototype. That's really, I think, the only differences from the last video to this video. Oh, one other thing, the one really confusing part of the last video I really apologize for. Let's go back into the regular season. What happens if I go over? So if I have 15 wins and 15 losses, say, well, we'll make it 14 wins and 15 losses. We've played 29 games, which is well over 23. All I'm going to do, and this is very hurtful, I'm going to pick up my win token, and we're going to leave those 15 losses where they are, and I'm going to do some quick math, and I'm going to find that 8 wins and 15 losses will get me to 23. The reason for that is essentially we're giving you 45 wins and 45 losses, and we're only going to decide those 72 games. So the wins that we took away are really counted in those 45 games that we're going to give you as a win. Hopefully we get to see a lot of people at WBC, or if you're in the Pennsylvania area and you want to stop in, send me a geek mail. Be sure to like us on Facebook, search for us on Board Game Geek, and if you have any questions, send me an email on Facebook or Board Game Geek. I'll be happy to talk Lords of Baseball with you. And also at WBC, we'll be introducing the football version of this game, which is in straight prototype form, which is called Gridiron Moguls. We'll look for you at WBC. Thanks for watching.